This is an information video to help you understand how families and children and young people with special educational needs are expected to be supported in educational settings in Norfolk. SEN stands for Special Educational Need. Some children can find learning more difficult than others and might need extra or different support to help them learn. It is important to understand that there is a legal definition of SEN and that it is nothing to do with having a diagnosis. This is in the Children and Families Act 2014, Section 20, and it says that a child has SEN if they A. have a significantly greater difficulty in learning than the majority of others of the same age, or B. a disability which prevents or hinders him or her from making use of facilities of a kind generally provided for others of the same age in mainstream schools or mainstream post-16 institutions. Children have special educational needs if they have a learning difficulty which calls for special educational provision to be made for them. So, what does this mean for your child? It simply means that the school or setting your child attends needs to work with you and your child to make sure they're getting all the help they need to make it easier for them to learn. The SEN Code of Practice, Section 6.44 says, where a pupil is identified as having SEN, schools should take action to remove barriers to learning and put effective special educational provision in place. Section 6.45 says, schools should take seriously any concerns raised by a parent. There is an absolute duty on schools to provide support for children with SEN. This applies to all schools except independent schools. Your views or concerns as a parent or carer are extremely important, and the school must listen and take them seriously. What can you expect from your child's setting? Your child's school should get to know your child and what they need in order to learn and develop and reach their potential. They should listen to your child and to you when thinking about what needs to be put in place in order to help them to develop. Everyone should be working towards enabling your child to be as confident and independent as possible so that they can lead a fulfilling life. Your child should be included in all aspects of school life. The SEN Code of Practice outlines what a school should do, and there is a reference at the bottom of the slide, along with a link to a guide for parent carers, which you may find helpful. So, how can your child's setting meet their needs? To help your child learn, develop and progress, settings need to identify your child's special educational needs, make sure your child can access learning. This may mean making some changes for them. Check that they are learning and progressing and plan with you and your child for next steps. Here are some of the wider responsibilities that settings have to consider from the SEN Code of Practice. Section 6.4 says that school leaders and teaching staff, including the SENCO, should identify any patterns in the identification of SEN, both within school and in comparison with national data, and use these to reflect on and reinforce the quality of teaching within the setting. Section 6.9 continues that these duties are anticipatory. They require thought to be given in advance to what disabled children and young people might require and what adjustments might need to be made to prevent disadvantage. Section 6.12, the National Curriculum Inclusion Statement, says that teachers should set high expectations for every pupil, whatever their prior attainment. Teachers should use appropriate assessment to set targets which are deliberately ambitious. Potential areas of difficulty should be identified and addressed at the outset. It goes on to state that lessons should be planned to address potential areas of difficulty and to remove barriers to pupil achievement. In many cases, such planning will mean that pupils with SEN and disabilities will be able to access the full national curriculum. The class or subject teacher is responsible for the learning of all pupils in their class, including those who have SEND. It's part of the SEN Code of Practice, Teacher Standards and Ofsted expectations. High quality teaching, or HQT, is the first step to ensuring that all pupils' needs are met. So what do we mean by high quality teaching? Confidence building, clear routines, communication, activities, variety, structure to lessons, review of learning, enthusiasm, feedback, checking understanding. This diagram shows the process that all settings should have in place to help identify and address the needs of their children and young people. As mentioned previously, high quality teaching is the starting point for all children and young people. Your child's progress is discussed and decisions are made between all involved about whether anything needs to change. If your child is not making expected progress, then a plan that involves reasonable adjustments in the classroom or to how learning is delivered will be made. This is in addition to high quality classroom teaching. This plan is then put into action for a period of time, usually about 6 weeks, and then reviewed again to see whether the changes have made any impact on your child's progress. After 2 cycles, the progress of your child is reviewed. If expected progress is not being made, then the Assess, Plan, Do, Review cycle can be implemented. The slides that follow discuss this cycle in more detail. At the Assess stage of the cycle, a setting will gather together all the information they hold about your child. This requires gathering information including the following. What does the child or young person think or feel about how they learn and what they need? What are the opinions of the parents or carers? What information is there about the child's development? How much progress is the child making in school subjects compared to other children in their year group? What information does the class teacher have about adjustments already in place, and how successful have these been? Have any external services been involved? What advice or information has been received? It's really important that your wishes and feelings and those of your child have been included, and that the setting has a good idea about how your child is developing, the progress they're making at school in comparison to other children in their year group, and what adjustments are already in place. Where external professionals are not already working with the school staff, and it has been agreed that this is an appropriate next step, the Special Educational Needs Coordinator, or SENCO, will make contact. The SENCO will also ensure that they have agreement from you and from your child. The planning stage is when everyone gets together to work out what needs to happen so your child can achieve the outcomes everyone has agreed upon. It is really important that everyone who will be working with your child, including people at home, understand what will be different and what these differences will help to achieve. You must be included in any discussions around your child if they are identified as needing SEN support. At the plan stage of the cycle, the child, young person, parent carer, teacher and SENCO work together to agree a plan. What is going to be different and why? What difference is this going to make? How long will this be in place for? When will this be reviewed? Anyone working with the child or young person will need to know what the needs are, what everyone wants to happen, and what the plan is. The do stage of the cycle is putting the plan into action. It's important to think about who is responsible for the plan. Teachers should work closely with the staff involved to plan and assess the impact of support and interventions and how they can be linked to classroom teaching. The SENCO will support the teacher. Who works with the child or young person? Someone who has qualifications or expertise in an area might help to deliver parts of the plan, but the teacher will be involved all the time as they will continue gathering information throughout the do stage. How long does the plan last? This will be agreed at the planning stage and is usually half a term or 6 weeks. What happens if things go wrong in that time? It may be that your child is not happy or doing as well as was planned. If this happens, anyone can request an early review meeting to discuss what's not working and what needs to change. The review stage is looking at what's happened and the difference it has made. The review happens on the date agreed in the plan, or before if things are not going as well as expected. At the review, everyone involved looks at new information the setting has gathered and considers if the original plan needs to continue or if a new plan needs to be agreed. You, your child and the setting staff will discuss what's happened during the do stage and how well things are going. It might be agreed that the plan is working well but needs some more time, or some small changes need to be made, which means another review date will be set. If all agree that the plan is not working well, the setting will assess the needs of your child again, information gathering, and a new plan can be agreed with a review date after another period of time, usually 6 weeks. If this happens, then the assess, plan, do review process will be on its second cycle. It is really important that you and your child always have clear information and are involved in any decision making. The provision expected at SEN Support or PEAS document is co-produced with parent-carer groups, settings and experts in SEND. It explains Norfolk County Council's expectations for the additional support called provision that settings should put in place for all learners, including those with SEND. In the PEAS document, there are some ideas for questions that you might want to ask settings about the additional support they can offer to meet your child or young person's needs. There is a link on the screen to the PEAS document and also to a short video about the PEAS. Posters have been produced to support settings to meet different needs. There are 7 posters which include whole setting strategies, suggestions for SEN support in the classroom, and suggestions for the SENCO. There are posters for deafness, visual impairment, autistic spectrum disorder, cognition and learning, coordination, physical disability, social, emotional and mental health, and speech, language and communication. There are hyperlinks within the posters which take you to other useful sources of information. Here are some examples of whole setting approaches from the PEAS poster on autistic spectrum disorder. Here are some examples from the same poster of SEN support strategies in the classroom. And here are some examples of suggestions for the SENCO. Educational professionals, including parent-carer groups, have been involved in creating documents that help Norfolk schools identify need and plan provision, shown here. These documents form part of the setting's graduated response and will inform your child's support plan. Links can be found at the end of this presentation to further information on these documents if you wish to find out more. Information about what a school provides in terms of interventions and support should be provided in their SEN information report. You should be able to find this on the setting website. It should be updated every year and should help to answer most of your questions about how the school will support your child. The SEN Information Report should help to answer questions such as: how does the school know when my child needs extra help? How is the decision made about the type and level of support my child will receive? What should I do if I think my child may have special needs? How will you support my child? How will the school prepare and support my child to join the school and transfer to a new one? How will you know how my child is doing, and how will you share this with me? What specialist services and expertise are available or accessed by the school? What support is there for my child's overall well-being? How can I be involved? How will the curriculum be matched to my child's needs? What training have staff had to support children with SEND? Who can I contact for further information? How accessible is the school? How will my child be included in activities outside the classroom, including school trips? All settings have additional funding streams for children and young people with SEND open to them. Some interventions or additional support may require extra funding. All settings receive a notional SEN budget to meet the needs of all the children and young people with SEN. Settings can apply for funding on top of their notional budget for children and young people with identified high needs. Additional funding is available to apply for where a child or young person has been identified with high needs. They do not need to have an EHCP, Education, Health or Care Plan, or a formal diagnosis to access funding. Here are some frequently asked questions and some links to documents that have been mentioned earlier in this presentation. We hope that this video has been of benefit to you. Should you wish to provide us with any feedback on how we can improve services, please send us an email.